All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming this evening. I'm going to call to order the July 22nd, 2024 Public Safety Services Delivery Working Group meeting for this evening. Ray, could you give us a roll call, please?
Jordan Wittrin.
Present.
Jeffrey One.
Present.
Carol Allen.
Here.
Victoria Rizzo.
Here.
Twyla Harrington.
Here.
Danny Stavinson.
Here.
Rich Allen.
Here.
And me. All right.
We're all here.
Everyone is here.
All right, I'm going to interject and ask everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Moving on to agenda item number 2, public comment. We'll go ahead and open it up to public comment. I do not see anybody in the room this evening, so we'll open it up for Zoom. Anybody on Zoom that has public comment and like to be heard, please state your name and city of residence. And going. And we're going to go ahead and close public comment for this evening. And we're going to move on to agenda item number 3. Consent agenda 3.1 minutes for June 3rd, 2024 for our regular meeting minutes. Any discussion on the minutes? Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. This is Carol. I'll make a motion to accept the minutes on June 3rd, 2024.
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Consent agenda carries. Gonna go ahead and move on to agenda item number 4, review of Troutdale police study from Jensen Strategies. Are you handling that one, Ray?
I will, yes. Carrie, who was the lead on the study, was out of town this week, so he couldn't be here, but I said, that's fine, I'll take the lead on it, presenting it to you. The committee has met with the Jensen Strategies, as you recall, a number of months ago, you met with Carrie, talking through the expectation for what a Troutdale Police Department would look like. He went through the methodology and the things that he did in the study. He met with me about 3 weeks ago when they had a draft of this report. And then he met with Eric Mueller and myself about 2 weeks ago on the draft of the report, because I want to make sure Eric had a good look at it financially to see if there was any comments or concerns he had. And then they presented to me last week the final of the report, and I said, no, we're going to call it a draft, because I don't want to finalize it till you guys have had a chance to go through and understand it and make sure that you didn't think there was anything missing or wrong about it. So before we put the final on it, I wanted this committee to go through it, understand it, get any questions asked, and make sure there's nothing else that you think should be included in the report. So that is what you have before it. If you read through the report, the assumptions that he generally made were that he would create coverage for the city very similar to what we told Multnomah County Sheriff's Office we wanted for the next contract, which is generally 24/7 sergeants, 2 patrol cars on the road 24/7, and 2 community resource deputies that would, officers that would be available to do special assignments in the city. It also included a full-time chief, and it included another position, if you're going to be operating the police department, of a lieutenant or a commander, which is between the sergeants and the chief. In there also was putting into the budget the code compliance officer, because that person would be under the police department. So that is what was included. In looking at the creation of the report, just to highlight a few things that was important. Most importantly, you'll notice that to start a Troutdale Police Department, he suggested at least a year lead time. Hire a chief, hire a commander, hire the administrative assistant, because you'll need them to start setting up the department and begin the recruiting process and hiring process for all the officers that we're gonna need. And it could take that long to hire the officers. So there is a cost leading up to the department actually opening. The second thing that was really important is to make sure that we have available bonuses. Everybody out there is offering bonuses to hire cops, because just generally, as we've heard before, it is a tough market out there to hire police officers and deputies. There's a lot of, for want of a better term, there's a lot of stealing going on out there. You know, transfers, people looking for greener pastures because things are much more competitive to hire people. So along with that, we told them for this report is that we need to make sure that our salaries being offered were comparable to Gresham, Multnomah County, Clackamas County, because that's our market. Our market is not other cities of 17,000 population, like say Coos Bay or Hood River. No, our competition is the metro area, and our salaries have to be commensurate with that. You probably, most of you don't remember, but you know, maybe Tanny does, or somebody, or Rich does. Our police officers were very vocal about joining the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, primarily because they were all gonna get a $10,000 a year raise, as I recall. And more opportunities for advancement and other things to do. So that is a big deal. And Captain Asbo, he has told me stories of, there were Fairview officers, I think 2 of them, that left to move over to the city of Troutdale when we had a police department, that they moved for just $500 a month. They were willing to move over here because it's, you know, kind of the same job, but I can make more money going here in Troutdale versus Fairview. So salary had to be competitive. The other thing that was really a big thing is the assigned vehicles. One thing Multnomah County does is each deputy has their own assigned vehicle. City of Gresham has already realized that, dang, we got to keep up with the Joneses. They're doing a pilot program now of starting to acquire more vehicles so they can start giving their officers their own vehicle. So that's something that deputies and officers expect, and to be competitive with, I don't know, some of you have probably seen Portland police cars sometimes on the road out in the middle of nowhere out here. You know, I see some of them live out in Boring. The city of Portland does it also for their police officers. So that's another thing we had to do to be competitive. So all those costs are figured in terms of the report. As you'll notice that the estimate for startup costs are $2 to $3 million. One of the things we talked about to get down to detail of this is one of the things that they originally didn't have was overhead. Because if the city is going to hire, 27 more people, we have an incumbent cost that goes up for HR, administration, payroll, IT. There's this overhead that every time you do a contract with another city, they always figure in overhead. We'll see that in the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, that they're gonna add a percentage of overhead because every employee adds something more to other departments, not necessarily in the police department. So we made sure that cost was added in there. The other things we had to make sure we added in the startup costs is that assuming this ever happened, the sheriff's office would leave this building and they'd take everything not nailed down with them. So we would have to buy all new furnishings for this building and install the computers and all the things that we no longer have, as if we'd want the computers from 10 years ago if they still existed. So we would have to replace pretty much all the furniture and furnishings that are in this building, since they all are owned by Multnomah County Sheriffs. And I'm getting a strange look from Mr. Tanny.
You sure that all the furnishings in here are owned by the sheriffs?
As far as I know, yes, because back when we did the contract, we pretty much sold to them everything we had.
Leased.
Okay, I have to go back and look, maybe we did, but then again, do we still want it?
About the 10-year lease.
Yeah.
Well, the building, yes, but you know, the tables and chairs, I'm not sure.
So if you remember at that time, we had furnishings in here, but it wasn't enough for all their needs, so they did have to bring some of them.
Right,
But the stuff that did transfer was supposed to be, all the equipment, including the cars, was supposed to be in the lease that we could get back if we needed to. But to your point, after 10 years, who wants it? Right?
well, yeah, I don't think there are any of our cars left, because they've been replacing their cars in their normal schedule and getting
Usually
new
don't
ones.
last that long.
Yeah, it's been 9 years now. Police cars don't last that long. Even though I do see one Troutdale police car still roaming around occasionally. Yeah, so, anyway, the point was is that there was a lot of background costs that had to be included in that startup cost, depending on, you know, the different things. As the report explained, that was $2 to $3 million. And then he went through, as you see on the appendix at the end, was the cost for the first year in current dollars was approximately $5.7 million, adding up all those costs for the ongoing costs beyond the startup costs. So anyway, that's kind of the general approach of the report. Discussion, I guess, questions, comments?
Yeah, we'll go around the room a little bit, see who has what comments.
Oh, goodness for chatty.
Huh?
I said, oh goodness for chatty.
Yeah. Well, I'll start then. What about services that we may need still from Multnomah County? Like investigative services. What if we want to use the HOPE team? What if,
Well, theoretically, the HOPE team would still be there, because the HOPE team isn't assigned just to Troutdale. The HOPE team works with all of unincorporated Multnomah County. So they would still be available to a certain extent.
yeah, to a certain extent, but I think
Yeah,
if we wanted to use them as much as we're getting now, I'm sure there'd be some sort of fee. But investigative services?
well, the budget includes a detective.
I don't know, we'll probably have to check the lawyer to see those things, because we are still Monoma County. And we do still pay Monoma County tax.
I'm just thinking if there's above and beyond what we don't have within scope of, we
Yeah.
need extra
I
services.
mean, they were always there before, the Troutdale Police Department, backing up the Troutdale Police Department, doing multi-agency teams with us.
So was there extra fees and services?
No, we didn't pay anything extra.
So like we had two investigative officers, right? And those investigative officers often work with the county investigation team.
Okay,
And it was a cooperative, but I think as a general rule, if we're needing more than what the general county gets, then yeah, we'll end up having to probably do something, but that's more of a lawyer question there.
okay, just asking. Katie?
Well, I guess to come off of that question, it would be, you know, what is it that we get for the money that our citizens are paying to the county now? Because some of what they're paying for is law enforcement. And in the past, when we had Troutdale Police, human trafficking, there was a whole multitude of things that the county did for us. And we've gone through this process, and we've heard about, well, you're not gonna have that, you're not gonna have that, you're not gonna have that. Well, we had all of that before.
Yeah, you're right. We all pay taxes, right? We all pay, you pay Multnomah County taxes, then part of it goes to the services. So there should be some, yes.
Right.
The issue is, what is that? And what was it before? It's a good question.
So I mean, the hope would be we would get something
Yes.
besides bad policy for our tax
Yeah,
dollars.
yeah.
And then I'm also looking at this and I'm thinking, the car thing is kind of hard to get your head around at first, but like, so Gresham's gonna have 124 police cars?
They're working toward that, yes. They
Okay,
don't have them all yet, but they're working to, because they realize the market out there, if they're gonna be competitive, that's a benefit that they have to provide.
Clarification, is that just for law enforcement officers that can respond to problems? Or is that everybody?
Well, that's law enforcement can respond to problems, and I think we got 24 people. Even though I thought it said 25 cars in there, but there's 24 people that
I think
I
it's
see.
25 cars because there's an extra one just for
Oh.
the ones out of commission.
Just have an extra one for a backup around.
Some's gonna be in
how many cars potentially would we get back from the county?
I would assume 0. I haven't looked at the contract if there's anything. It's a question to be answered.
Because we gave them basically our entire fleet.
Senator, I'll have to get back to you on that question. Oh, I'm sorry, that's what usually they say on TV, when they don't want to answer the question.
Yeah.
I'll answer the question.
I thought we sold them to them.
I did too.
Yeah, for like $1.20 a car or something. No, I mean, it was,
I know, I mean, that's our,
yeah,
Yeah, I'll find out. Under the contract, or we can tell anything.
because the county claimed that there was like no value to them, even though like 4 of them were brand new.
Okay. I'll go back and look at the contract, see if there's any provision in there for that. Whatever it's gonna be, it's probably gonna be de minimis, and obviously it's gonna be 10 years old at the time or more. Whatever you talk about, what the county will provide in addition to our highway department, the department's being created is pretty much very similar with just a couple more bodies than we had before, and so presumably they provide the same help since we're not doing that all again. Now, of course, the county is gonna have a substantial reduction in their deputies too, because since we're gonna be needing 12 for patrol and chief and things like that, they'll have too many bodies in their patrol division, because they won't have to do it for us.
And probably stating the obvious out loud is how
Well, they were-
disgruntled is Multnomah County Sheriff gonna be over this? Whether they say it openly or inadvertently, we're probably ruffling their feathers if we would
Oh, yeah.
go through with this model. Hey, we're gonna have to lay some people off.
Right.
We're losing services, we're losing income, we're having to change our model completely and disrupt our world. And they're not gonna be as easy to just, hey, we're here more as a partner, now we're more of a disgruntled partner.
Right. The other thing too is that probably half their patrol division is devoted to the 3 cities.
Yeah.
So they're gonna lose a big chunk of it. They have no place to put their deputies.
Yes, Kenny?
It's not really a kumbaya moment. If you remember 10 years ago, it wasn't a kumbaya moment then either. It was pretty
It was
We got
tense.
everybody.
It was pretty intense. It was like a Teamster negotiation.
Yeah.
And I mean, and this is when you're going into a marriage and it wasn't pretty. So I think you're right. It wouldn't be as pretty going out, but it wasn't great going in either.
Yeah. Now, I will add to this, well, I'll get to that one in a minute, we get to the next, agenda item.
Let's keep going with this. So, questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah, good question, Tammy, I'll get an answer to that one.
Do we have did Multnomah County get back to us yet?
Pardon?
Did Multnomah County get back to us with their?
Mr. Chairman, when we get to agenda item
Agenda
number 5,
five.
I'm not gonna tell you now.
I don't have a question.
Okay.
I had the same as him, because
Yeah,
I have questions on 5 to coincide with this.
if at that time we need to revert back to 4,
Okay.
once we get to 5.
You're the chairman, if you wanna combine 4 and 5, go ahead.
I just, anything directed directly to agenda item number 4. Go ahead, Danny.
Okay, so their FTE numbers are based on what?
The FTE numbers are based upon generally what we are providing for now, plus the extra couple small things we ask from the county in the next contract, which is a full-time chief and a second community policing deputy. So we'd have 2 full-time policing deputies, which is really only a half-time increase because we already are paying for a second half-time person based on the beach patrol issues. But in our current contract, we pay.
So it's pretty close to what we're mirroring
Right.
ask from.
It pretty much mirrors what we ask, and of course, to create a Troutdale Police Department, that was one of the big issues 9 years ago, was that we never before provided 24/7 sergeants. So the patrol deputies were on their own, there's no sergeant backing them up. The county provides a sergeant, because they can provide a sergeant that covers the patrol deputies in all of East County, and so he gets to cover more than Troutdale. And so what this model does, it provides that we will have our own sergeants 24/7 to be there to supervise the patrol. We didn't have that all the time then.
Rich?
I don't know if Tanny's done, but,
Go ahead.
okay, we might get back to Tanny then. So, one thing that I wanted to ask about was, the community resource officers. We got them for the school, right? And that was just a safety thing, the way society is these days. But we also wanted to bring in more for that taking care of the smaller problems that tend to get neglected. So what happens is, with Multnomah County, you have a major incident, you have something going down for full force. It's impressive, right? But we might necessarily get into the small things that tend to eventually become the big things. And so the idea was to have some community officer that would be more involved in the community. Well, when you go to your own police force, boy, the whole police force was like a community officer. I remember them coming to our house because their daughter was throwing rocks. That's the stuff that they got down to, right?
Whose daughter, yours or Carol's daughter?
Well, at that time, that would have been hers.
Okay, I want to make sure we clarify for the record,
Mine's perfect.
because this is being recorded, Carol.
Yeah. Anyway, the advantage of that is that we quash things when they were small. And boy, our daughter didn't care for that very much, and we didn't have trouble with her after that. And wish I could bring him back.
Yeah,
Just that, hey, grandson's starting to act up. Anyway, long story short is, when we had our own police force, we didn't have the desire or the need for community officers at that time because all the Troutdale officers stayed in the community during the entire workday. They weren't necessarily pulled off unless there's some kind of incident going on that needed backup because we have cooperation. And we took care of it. So that's one thing we have to consider is how much do we need in that aspect?
The other thing to remember, part of, sorry, I was just gonna say, to kind of answer that, the big change in the last 20 years, we've always had 2 patrol officers on the road or deputies for over 20 years. During that time, we've had a huge increase in both businesses and, a fair amount of population during that time. The calls have gone up substantially. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I get the reports every month. But it's something like our call volume went from like 700 or 800 calls a month to like 1,800 or 1,900 calls a month. And so those are just, don't quote me on those numbers, I can get them exactly, but what it is they're getting over twice as many calls for service as they used to, which means Officer Dave Boyce, if you remember, whoever remembers Dave Boyce, Dave can't sit out on Marine Drive and write speeding tickets anymore because he's always going to calls, and that's what's happened. They can't be out there to do the small things that, Rich, you're talking about. And that's why we added that resource deputy, because the 2 patrol deputies that we pay for now, they're busy just on calls most of the time. They can't really do any traffic work, they can't do any focused work. Nick, our resource deputy, at least once a week, he gets on the quad and he goes through every wild area of Troutdale and Beaver Creek Canyon on the quad looking for homeless people and looking for crime going on. Without him, we wouldn't have the resources to do that or pay attention to the speeding issues. So the call volumes have gone up a lot, so they can't do those small things anymore, and that's the rationale behind the resource deputy. So anyway.
That's a good point.
and I would say though, I mean, for the last couple of years, we've talked about trying to find that happy medium between neighborhood policing and.
And just so you'll know, the numbers, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, the officers in Troutdale were writing 2,000 tickets a year, sometimes up to 2,500 or more tickets a year. I don't think we've exceeded 600 tickets in a year in the last 9.
Yeah.
I know driving has gotten amazingly better. Yes, I'm sure it has. But they're just not spending any time on it because they don't have the time.
Well, and the point is if you're taking care of the small stuff and they don't grow into the big stuff, you're gonna start to reduce your call volumes. However, if you look at what we've done politically, we've said, theft is okay, just keep it down.
Wow.
We call that the broken window theory.
Yeah, we've just made it a whole lot worse, so.
One of the things that comes up for me looking at this, and also when we talk about fire, is it's the startup cost. And when I look around Troutdale, we're growing exponentially. And so I wonder if we have kind of a projected census growth and then look over like the next 10 years, because it's one thing to drive the nice, beautiful car off the lot, but can we afford that maintenance and that ongoing as we need to keep growing? And just wondering, because I didn't see it in here, but what are some of those, based on this, what do we think it'll look like in 10 years? When all those cars are no longer usable and we have to reinvest again.
So right now, our population is.
Depends on who you ask, probably closer to 17.
17,005 is the number that we're running with. The metro number for our cap is 17,625.
I thought we were like 22 or 22,000 full build out.
No, you're 17,600.
Say that one more
Based on
time.
17,600.
Well, that's wrong.
I'm sorry, but that's what it's all based on.
Okay.
So we're, well,
In my own mind, I can list 5 separate properties not yet on the market that will add several thousand people to the city.
But you can't tell Metro they're wrong.
No.
So you're saying, say that, so we're at 17.5,
17,005,
okay.
okay.
And then what did you say, the,
17,625.
625?
Is
Yeah.
the cap.
Is the cap.
So then we just push them out of city limits?
They give you a number and your funding and your
That-
housing analysis and all those things are based on those numbers. And that's the number that we've been working with for a good number of years.
Okay,
And they don't typically change it even if it's wrong.
That's interesting.
So back to Twyla's question, Ray, of, you know, if our startup costs are 5.7 million, or our first year, operating budget is 5.7 million, and it would increase by 468,000 the second year, are we anticipating it's gonna go up by 400,000 every year?
Yeah, because in the, one of the appendices was the second year budget.
Yeah, 468,000, but what about the
Yeah.
third year budget? Are we anticipating like,
Yeah,
How
you gotta
sustainable
figure
is
4 to
this?
5%, 3 to
Every-
5% a year, because right now we've been locked into a 2.5 to 4.5% increase with Multnomah County
That's-
sheriffs.
but that's only, yeah, but I would think it would be more if we were gonna have a responsibility for all the physical cars, the building, the
Well, the building, yeah, because we don't pay
computers,
for, yeah,
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 I mean,
We get rent for
everything
these buildings.
else, that it would be more of a increase than that.
yeah.
well,
I think it would be closer to 10 or something,
but to Twyla's question,
no?
the cars that we had in the past, right? Your patrol cars take a beating because they're sitting out there. They're, your brakes are gonna wear out sooner than your alternating, just, they're running, but they're not necessarily going very many miles, but they're running, just to keep all the equipment alive and so forth. So they tend to wear out faster as far as per mile. And what we're doing is we're taking those patrol cars and we're retiring them to the rest of the force that responds to when we have a problem, right? And getting new patrol cars and get that flow going. We weren't buying new cars all the way across the board. We might buy a car or two a year.
Right, trying to get a rhythm
Right.
of what's going, but it's gonna change if everybody's taking their car home and.
Well, yeah, the cars will last longer under that model. Because they're not being used 24/7 on 3 different shifts in the same day, they're just being used for one shift. And they're obviously not available for personal use because they're patrol cars.
I don't know, did we answer the question?
Somewhat.
Yeah,
What would you like?
No, I think it's just something for me to think about as we're looking at these different models, is that projected kind of cost over time versus, yeah.
it is, I mean, hitting our budget, if it's a 7% number or something, it's still substantial, it's still gonna grow.
Oh, I think it grows either way, actually. Yeah. Policing is just, it's expensive. I don't think that's gonna stop. I think we're on the whole, we're making the job more and more difficult. And, you gotta encourage people to do that difficult job. It's not easy.
Anybody else before we move on to number 5?
talks about medical, dental, and, you know, all the other expenses. Have we calculated that that's gonna change and how, more expensive that's going to be over the next 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, for so many expenses, you can't project it out that far, other than what has been the last, the last 10 years, what has been the inflation number, and the costs have gone up.
Are
Because
you
that's,
asking if it was considered in the study?
well, I'm trying to find the data, but then, I mean, that's part of, looking at a job is, what can you offer me?
Right.
So what can you offer me for me to leave Multnomah County and go to Troutdale?
It would presumably offer the same benefit package that our competitors are offering. Because the number on the budget, is like, what is it, about, my eyesight's crappy, about $500,000 a year for,
Yeah.
which is about $20,000 a year per employee.
Tammy, do you have another question?
Yeah. Well, I have a comment and a question,
Lucas and Rick?
okay? If you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Okay. First thing would be, we did not have sergeant coverage 24/7, you're correct, but we did have 5 sergeants and a lieutenant in that time, in 2014.
5 sergeants?
5 sergeants and a lieutenant. We had 27 FTE, and what looks like what we're going to now is 27 FTE. It's just structured slightly different. Instead of lieutenant, you have commander, you have chief, you basically, really, you have one more sergeant than what you had before, that's really the difference between the models. So I just wanna get out there that that's what we're really looking at, is that's the big difference here.
Yeah.
From one to the other. And, so I guess the loaded question that I have is, how would we fund this?
General fund.
How would you come up with
That's how we-
money for year 1,
Yeah.
Well,
the startup cost?
that wasn't for the study to determine. They don't know how you want to come up with it.
No, I'm asking you,
Oh,
or anyone
there
else.
are a number of different ways you could do it. One, you could dig into our ending fund balance, which is never advisable, and you know how much it is. The second one, and this is probably something that you probably want to do, because this is a community decision. If I'm gonna suggest something, I say you ask the citizens for a bond levy to be able to pay for this, because also presumably the cost of this is gonna be more than the sheriff's contract. I anticipate, I sent the sheriff's, all right, let's get into the next item.
Yeah, let's-
I sent the sheriff's office, they're gonna, this budget, so they would know, I told them, don't you dare get a number for us anywhere close to this. I wanna make sure they really sharpen their pencils well before they gave us their bid for what our service was going to be. But I anticipate we're gonna have, just rough numbers, I'm guessing their estimate's gonna be like $4.7 million first year, 25-26, for that, which is, currently, it's approximately $4 million. A couple $1,000s less than $4 million, but it's $4 million now, so I anticipate going up 700,000. This one is gonna be going up $1.7 million, and that extra $1 million a year over what I anticipate the sheriff's gonna want us to pay starting in 2025, I would suggest that instead of just thrusting it on the general fund, which only lasts so long, we start eating it up that way, especially when we have the fire issue going on, you should ask the citizens to do a bond levy for startup costs. Do they really want to start the Troutdale Police Department, see if they ponied up?
There's not very much of this that you could bond. Most of it's operational.
Right,
You could
but the
bond
startup
capital
costs, the capital costs, the cars and things in the startup costs, you could also tie into it a public safety levy, like they did in Gresham, which can be paid for operations, which they do. So you kind of do both, the bond levy for the capital side of it, and then a public safety levy for the other part of it. Those would be the two ways that most cities go about raising money for things such as this.
And then it's the benefit outweigh what we're gonna get from
Right.
Multnomah County, right?
Yeah.
That's what we need
We don't know.
to discuss, yes.
Yeah. That, you know, it's a good question, because I've thought about that. I think the only way the city can afford to do it is if we ask the citizens to vote to charge themselves more to cover these extra costs and see if they really want it.
Here's my concern, as a citizen of Troutdale, I know for a fact that Reynolds School District is also gonna probably go out for levy in the next year or two. My concern is if you have Reynolds, then you've got us asking for a bond levy.
Metro.
Or Metro, I'm concerned about people even passing it.
The
I mean,
other-
I keep going back to the fact that people are tired of paying all the taxes they're paying. And if we are going to increase
Not
it
good
more and
community
more,
college.
I'm really, really concerned about that.
There would have to be a reason, right? If, like we were mentioning earlier, if there's some way of making it safer by structuring different.
You would have to prove to the citizens of Troutdale, would it be better for us to have our own police station again, or our police force again? Or are they happy with them in Multnomah County now? If they're happy with Multnomah County now, they're not gonna want to bend over backwards for us to get our police station. I mean, they're just not.
There's
I mean, I
al-
could be totally wrong, but my conversations with people, I mean, they're looking at leaving Oregon just because of the taxes. I mean, Multnomah County is so expensive. I mean, our son left Multnomah County and went to Cactus because it was cheap.
The other thing, it's a similar issue to Old City Hall, is do everything you can, give the citizens a chance. They want to pay to remodel Old City Hall and use it again. They said resoundingly no. When it comes to police services, I don't know, but the other thing to remember too is that we may, who knows, we may in 3 to 4 years be putting a ballot measure on there to join a fire district. And
What's more important, or what's?
yeah,
what's the
do we want to
community
keep
thinks
the
more
police costs down and not have our own our police department, saving our bullet for a bond levy for the fire district?
Because if we ask too much at one time, it's
Yeah.
gonna overload people.
I
We're
agree.
not the city of Portland, we don't approve all bond levies.
No, we don't.
If you did a fire district, you have more money to spend on the police force.
It's all about timing too.
Yes.
Okay, we're moving on to Twyla.
I know, sorry. I'm trying to remember, the person who came to talk to us about the bond levy, didn't they say part of that work was doing some surveying of the community to see kind of how they felt before we started on that journey? Because I think that might be interesting, is to kind of look at both of these and see where the citizens are around that, and kind of what the pulse is right now.
I also know that the safety committee has also talked about doing a questionnaire to the citizens about how they're feeling right now and what are their opinions. And I'm not sure, I mean, we've talked about that within the committee itself, and so I know that our chair was now going to be talking to Ray about that, so I'm not sure
No,
what
your
that is.
chair did talk to Ray.
Good.
Yeah, that study is generally, you've seen the study, but it's generally directed toward a general feeling of concerns or safety. It's not a financial survey, where people had to weigh, is it worth it to them?
But people have feelings, and if they feel crappy about the police service, they're not gonna vote for us to have. Do you know what I mean? They may change the vote.
Or
I mean,
they'll vote
people
for
have
it because then we'll get our own back and it'll get better.
They'll vote for it, but how can you convince them that it's better?
Correct, that it's gonna be any better.
You don't even know if you can get people to do it.
Right, this is why I'm a big fan of professionals doing surveys, because they know how to ask the questions to get the answers you want asked answered. And so.
Because you do tie in both your fire and police
Yeah.
of which one has the more opportunity
Right.
within Troutdale, and then if you're gonna spend money, where would you wanna put the money, in fire or police?
Yeah, and I'll keep rambling here. I'll be the first to tell you that, I deal with all the time the control issue, not having our own police department. I will say generally, the management at Multnomah County Sheriff's Office is generally more understanding and sympathetic of the needs of the municipalities like Troutdale, much more than the county commission that controls their budget. And luckily, we have a contract where they're required to provide services to us. And if we get a contract from Multnomah County that's, say, somewhere in the ballpark of $4.7 million, $1 million less than this, I can't tell you that the new services we would get with a full-time chief, a second resource deputy, full-time, isn't going to be a good coverage for the city, because I don't hear, as I told the chair of your committee, your wife, complaints about people feeling unsafe or crime in the city would usually come through my office, and I don't get, nothing's increased in the last 8 years. Yeah, we look at the crime numbers, the Public Safety Committee looks at the crime numbers every month. I don't see in the last 7 or 8 years any significant changes or uptick in crime.
It's different though, Ray.
It's different, but
It's different because like now you have BOAC, and so I don't think all the calls are getting through. And I just tell you what I see now in my neighborhood, people get broken into, they get burglarized, nobody comes and takes a report. So it doesn't even come up as just a statistic. And if you've got a motorcycle, I saw this just yesterday, motorcycle going by like at 75 miles an hour, cops going the other way.
But
Yeah.
I think that's our hope with a full-time
Correct.
chief and having another full-time
Yes.
resource is to have more neighborhood policing.
Right.
We
But
can't
if
say
the
it's for sure
people-
it's gonna
But
work.
if the people you have aren't willing to enforce the laws that you have on the books, what do you do?
okay, boy, Tanny, I hear you completely. I can tell you more than once, I have sat down at the 257th and Historic Columbia River Highway, and I've watched a cop going one direction and watched 2 cars go through a red light turning right in front of them, and the cop car keeps going. Because they're probably going out to Savi's Island for the patrol district or somewhere else, and so they're not really into doing their work mode. And there's a culture at Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, they've never really done municipal work and traffic work, and they're just not attuned to that. And that's why Nick has been great as our resource deputy. That's why I'm hoping Colin Murphy, who's now working with the security people down at Glen Otto Park, I've told him, released him to say, if the park is calm and you've got 2 people from OPS down there, go run traffic downtown. And he likes doing traffic. So if we were in a situation where we had Multnomah County Sheriff's deputies that did just resource deputy work and could be directed that way, I think we'd see a lot more activity in those areas.
Yeah.
So.
I would hope so.
Yeah, and as for the reporting, that's the problem. You don't know what you don't know. And that's the other problem, as I told the chairman of your committee, the problem with asking questions about how do you feel safe or how responsive are police, a lot of people will have an experience with 911 or BOAC, and they'll equate that to the police department or the sheriff's office, because they don't really think the difference. They're calling 911 for help or non-emergency, and they can't get through to anybody. So they blame, the sheriff's office get emails about it all the time. They're going, sorry, we can't help you on that. But so there's that cross problem of blaming somebody for not their fault. That's one of the problems with surveys and how you ask the question, because are they responding to the fact that no one answers their call? I remember, what was it, a couple of years ago? It's gone down in the last couple of years, but you could sit on 90 minutes on a non-emergency call, and then they hang up on you. And people makes them feel unsafe. It makes them feel like the police aren't doing a good job, even though the police had nothing to do with it.
Rich?
I think what Carol might be thinking about is when we go places, I'm chatty, I talk to a lot of people, and what we're picking up on is the majority of the people we talk to, they're concerned about financial and finances getting by. That's the majority of them. And underneath that is the group that is concerned about what's going on to the east of us and worried about crime coming this way, right? And then oddly enough, we've got another subgroup that thinks police are the problem, right? And then below that, we've got a fairly significant portion of the population that doesn't want crime stopped. They're benefiting from it, you know? Don't mess with me. And it's weird, but people who are into crime vote.
Yeah. And there's a significant portion that are, we need to write more tickets and we need the reputation to keep the bad element out too.
Right.
Now, do we have, right now, police that roam Troutdale at night?
Yes.
Or are they elsewhere?
No, they're assigned the district, we have District 60 and 70, and 24/7, there is a deputy in a car patrolling District 60, which is down below, which is basically Cherry Park and the light up at the top of Buxton north, and then District 70, which is from there south. There's a patrol deputy on the road all the time. The only time that they leave those districts is when they need to back up another call.
Twyla?
Yeah, when you guys mentioned the security down at the Glen Auto Park, I think a while ago we had a discussion about talking about if there are other things within the city that they might be able to help with, because when I think of living issues, at least within my area of Troutdale, they're not huge things where I need a sheriff's deputy. There are things where it's neighbors that are a nuisance and things like that, that it could be somebody that maybe had a little bit more authority, but doesn't need to be a deputy. So wondering if this model looks at using any contracted people to help with code enforcement and some of those other livability issues that also can lead to that feeling of being unsafe and neighborhoods being unsatisfactory with garbage everywhere and stuff like that.
Couple of things. Yes, because we'd have an extra 0.5 FTE for a resource deputy. The other big thing here that would be really nice for perception, and maybe even some of that stuff too, is that currently we pay for a 2/3 time chief, and bless their heart, I love them all, they've worked really hard, but no chief we've had in the 9 years of this contract has spent more than 20% of their time in a week on Troutdale work, not at all. But if we take it to full-time, like the model is in Clackamas County, Happy Valley, they have a contract with Clackamas County Sheriff's Office. They have a chief full-time, his only job is Happy Valley. And that was why that was a big deal, that we had a chief who was full-time, who could go into the communities, into the neighborhoods, spend time meeting with people, dealing with it. And that's one of the other reasons that the code compliance officer would be part of that. If we did the sheriff's office, it would be part of their overseeing them and the 2 resource deputies directly, so that that chief could coordinate and make sure we're being responsive to people's concerns. So those are the concerns we're trying to help respond to.
Okay, we're jumping around quite a bit, but we're. Okay, let's move on to agenda number 5, Ray. Update on discussion with MCSO regarding contract renewal.
I am promised by the end of this week, they will have their number for what we asked them for.
Have they hinted or said?
No.
Or?
Oh, it's in the bowels of Fifth and Hawthorne, among the number crunchers. They have their little black boxes and their little grinders, and Doug Asbell, Captain Asbell, I'm sure has no idea what's coming out of there.
Okay.
So I'm just guessing, essentially 4.7 number, I just extrapolated, the current contract of 4, adding an automatic 8% increase, for, the following year, a normal 4% increase. And they also did a salary bump a couple of years ago, about 2 years ago, of 4% on top of that for retention bonus and competitive bonus. So they've increased their salaries, that extra 4%. So I assume we're going to get hit with that too, because the other 2 cities, the other city, Fairview didn't have a contract that forbid them from adding that extra 4% onto their contract. So we only had a 4.5% increase that year instead of the 8.2 that Fairview got stuck with. So I assume they're going to stick it back to us, not badly, but that's what they're paying now for their deputies. So, got us up to, approximately 4.3, 4.4, and then the additional 0.5 FTE for the, community resource deputy, and the additional 0.3 for a chief. I just extrapolate, it's probably in the neighborhood of 4.7.
And they haven't hinted or anything, because they said they're gonna,
No.
an analysis on their side as far
Right.
as. headcount or-
And they may decide that we actually use, instead of 1 FTE records, that we actually use 2, or we actually, instead of 1 FTE detective, we need 1.67. They may have other numbers that bump us above the 4.7 that I have no clue, because they were gonna go back and look at it, and they haven't said anything to me yet. That's the best I can tell you.
So they're supposed
It's
to
not
get that to
much.
you at the end of the week? Yeah, it's not much.
Thanks for making us wait for that.
Yeah, yeah.
I know.
Highly, you could have put that more toward the front of the agenda, and maybe swap 4 and 5, and.
And when I met with them on April 30th, oh, we'll get it to you by the end of June. Keep bugging, oh no, it'll be toward the end of July. Okay.
So then,
Okay.
is there a deadline to get the contract of what they're gonna look at for us? I mean, if they're gonna show up in June 2025 and say, yeah, this is what we're presenting?
Oh, no, they're, the end of this week. The end of the week. I'm supposed to get,
For sure, the end of the week,
I-
or that's what they said, because they were supposed to be last
Yeah.
month, they did it, so, I mean, how long are they gonna?
you know, all I can communicate is what I was told.
No, you can communicate, hey, August 15th is the line in the sand, can you commit to having it to us by then? You could get a little aggressive.
Oh, yeah, I will. I try not, Doug really is conscientious and concerned about getting the answers. And if I don't get it by Friday, I will tell Doug, because I always tell somebody if I'm going over their head. I'm sorry, I'm sending the sheriff an email. So I said, today, Doug, remind me the ETA for MCSO's response on contract. Thanks. He said, this week. 2 words. So,
Thanks.
I will hold him to that.
Okay. Sounds,
I would have read that as, that rate guy's bothering me again.
Yes.
yeah.
I'm busy, but I'll get it this week.
Because, I mean, we needed to talk it through so it can go to the city council, right? I mean, we don't want last minute, being.
Well,
We still have a lot of time, but not,
Time
not,
flies.
time flies. But I think the idea was we also wanted to get that before going to Gresham to at least get some other kind of
right.
rate as well.
One of the things we want to be able to do is, now that we have this quote to do our own department, then we get the quote from Multnomah County Sheriff, then I'm gonna go over to City of Gresham and say, hey, here's what these people are saying, do you guys want to bid? They may not now. I mean, when I asked a couple of years ago, it was a different city manager. The police chief doesn't mind putting a bid. I just get concerned sometimes that, the west side of Gresham pulls a lot of emergencies and a lot of resources that way that would be sucked in this direction. The other thing is do we want to tie ourselves to Gresham again? We've already got fire, we've already got inspections, some plan review there. Do we really want to wet ourselves more to them? They've been fine at those, providing those services, but I just don't want to give another.
It doesn't hurt to ask, though.
No, it doesn't hurt to ask. No, I definitely will see if they want to put a bid on it.
Okay.
I must say, is that okay?
Yes. Go ahead, Rich.
I must say that I've met really good officers with Monoma County. And I've also met really good officers with Gresham. Right? They do really well, the officers.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, out here,
No.
it's a lot better than in Portland, I would say, perception. Kenny, I see you working away with your calculator. Did you have something?
No, I know you said we're bouncing around a lot, but to me, this is a lot of information
It's a
to be
ton,
going over.
a ton.
Right now, is that okay?
Yeah.
It's really hard, I think, to formulate any sort of decision based on not having Multnomah County's response to the contract. I think that would have been really helpful in terms of our conversation, because I feel like we have two things that there's kind of two ways to go. And I'm not gonna say this. You can either be worry about money and how much we're spending, or we can worry about the services that we're gonna provide. And I think that we each need to make that decision, what's important to us or important to the people that we represent, right? And so I hear a lot of what Tanny's saying, but you seem really, and I'm not saying it's bad or anything, you're really like numbers crunching, like this is gonna be really expensive. And I hear what you're saying, but we also in the same sentence a lot are talking about people want community policing. They wanna see people going through the neighborhoods. They wanna have people come to help deal with neighbor issues. We want more people available. We want people patrolling our streets and pulling more people over. We want to see and have that perception that we're safer than we are right now. And that to me costs a lot of money. And so when I think of these two things, both of them have their own merits. I think what is most important to us as a whole? Is it saving $1 million a year? Potentially, or whatever it is, or is it important more to spend that extra money so we feel safe? And I don't have the answer to myself of what I feel like is the right decision right at this point, but it kind of comes down to one of these. And I think for me personally, it would have been really good and helpful for me to take a day to go forward and be like, okay, Multnomah County is going to be this, it's going to be this much cheaper, or it's the exact same price. And now what's more important to me? You know, I don't have the answer, but it really, for me, comes down to these two things. Not having that number really kind of eats at me because I'm trying to figure out what that is. I think, Carol, you kind of, a lot of what you said just made sense earlier. So we could discuss in the weeds, but it comes down to one of those two things, and we have to decide, you know, what is the best way to move forward to send to city council. Like, I don't have the answer to that. I wish.
Well, we will,
But-
my next meeting,
Yeah, but I mean, we've been like, and I will go back to like what I said beforehand is that we postponed this meeting to this point because it was past Gresham. You know, it was all this, like, we should have the answers to this, and where you say we kind of have time, I feel like we need the answers so we can go to Gresham, and that's gonna take longer, and you know, so in a sense, if I could have that number, it could tell me like, okay, right now I have these two pretty good options. One is cheaper, maybe it's the same price, or one's way more expensive. I don't know the answer to that, but like, what's more important to me or us as a whole, this or this? And if we can kind of answer that, I think individually, it kind of helps us to move forward with what we want and ask for, maybe in, you know, navigating that certain contract that sounds best. So.
I would agree, it would be better to have all the numbers for Dr. Mean, but I must say, I do learn by listening to what the others have to say. It is educational for me.
And I will also say that I think the ask of Multnomah County Sheriff to increase the FTE and the head count is to try to get more neighborhood type policing and get that out of Multnomah County as well. So I think we're trying to find that happy medium and have those options as well. But that brings up more questions. Or do we think we're going to get that from Multnomah County even if we have that additional head count? So we don't know, but it's more further discussion. So, Kenny?
I agree with you. I wish we did have that information. I think it would be valuable. I'm certainly not all about the numbers. I'm looking at this, trying to figure out exactly what we're paying for what we're getting. I come back to a couple of, first off, there's a few things. I was around when we started the Troutdale Police Department and went into the old bank, and then when we sold it to the county, and now we're looking at going back. So I mean, it's like, these things are all interesting, and sometimes they're a little convoluted and there's more to them than you realize. And there are some people that are still a little whacked off about what happened with this building. But I guess one of the questions I have is, if we're going to be it's just me personally now, and my neighbors. But if we're going to be in a situation where somebody's gonna go flying by on a motorcycle, 85 miles an hour, cop's not gonna do anything. What is that? What does that look like on a ballot measure? Is it going to be better? I'm not so sure. You know, I mean, if we're going to charge people more and give them the same thing, we need to tell them that. We need to tell them it ain't gonna be any better than what you got today, but pony up. And it's kind of like, if we have something better to offer them, I think we need to tell them that too. But I think our overall, our messaging is going to be very important.
I agree. You're right there. And I've said it over and over again when I was on public safety and as a council member is, how do we hold Multnomah County Sheriff accountable and get them more responsive to what our community wants? And it's tough.
I think that would be a really important thing. It's how you add something like that into the contract to hold people accountable. And I think that you're like spot on with, and maybe what I hear you saying is accountability to our police force, to our community. What is their accountability to us in policing what you're talking about, policing what you're talking about, and how do we make that happen? But I don't, contracts are obviously not my cup of tea, but there's gotta be something in there. We can't just be like, well, we get 20% of his time of the chief comes here and it's supposed to be 2/3 of his time. How do you hold them accountable for that?
Right.
That's
why solving the problem, just they're full-time, and as I told the sheriff I met with, no other significant responsibilities in the sheriff's office.
right. And I'm
So
assuming that would.
we'll have an office
that
for
would,
them.
Get something more,
We'll have an office for them, they'll work here, this will be their only
Assuming that would be helpful, but would that solve all the problems, like you're saying? Maybe, maybe not.
Well, that's been our number one problem from day one is how do you keep them in the city when there's so much drawing them away? Right? And still have some kind of cooperative response with our surrounding communities. That's a very hard thing to navigate.
Twyla?
Yeah, just a quick question. So in my line of profession, with our contracts, we have like check-ins, and so there's accountability over that time span of, and so we look at, as say it's a 3-year contract, we have built into those timelines so that we can see if they are accountable to what they said they were gonna be, and then if they're not, what their plan is moving forward to change things. Is that what our contracts are like in city government, or is that different?
Right?
I'm sorry, repeat the question. I was pulling up, we were getting into this, I have this chart that shows me average hours spent in Troutdale per shift by day. Sorry, Twyla.
That's all right.
Talk about contract check-ins.
Yeah, so in my line of profession, our contracts, we
Right.
have certain check-ins to look at accountability for, they are being held accountable for what they said they would do in the contract. And so if it's a 3-year contract, that might be every 6 months, every year, whatever. But I was just wondering, with city government, are those contracts different, or do we not have those frequent check-ins to see if you're meeting the expectations, and if not, what are you gonna do to fall into line with those expectations?
We don't have a regular schedule for contract, we just, as they operate, we just have those conversations. One of the conversations that's driven me bats in the last year is that in our contract, we're paying for one administrative person. And if you've been on the PSAC committee, been there, Teresa hasn't been there in over a year. And then we get in and out, some people filling in and not there helping. And I keep bugging them, and they keep promising, oh, Teresa's coming back soon, and she's still not back. And it's getting very frustrating for me, because I keep looking at that, like with the chief, and no disrespect to the sheriff, but when I told her that about the chief, only getting about 20%, and her answer is, well, what are you missing? Okay, I'm missing what we're paying for. And if I actually had them 2/3 time, I would have things for them to do. I remember, Monty, bless his heart, he I don't know how many duties he had at the sheriff's office when Monty was our chief, 8 years ago. But when citizens would call about an issue, he would go out and knock on their door. And you know what? That's one of the things I'd have this chief doing, out there leading on the community policing effort. Anytime there's a complaint, go out there, directly deal with the complaint and talk to them. It's been nice having Nick does that, but it's not the same as the chief or, a command officer going out to someone's door and knocking on. Hey, I heard you had a problem. Let me talk to you about it. Your neighbor across the street, going over there who had theft, talking to them directly and finding out what problem they had with filing a report. That's what we miss. And we got that before with our other chiefs.
And
So it sounds like there can be gaps in the performance and there's not really,
there's no penalty.
yeah.
There's no
Okay.
penalty.
Interesting okay, we'll go back to the stats I was looking at here.
I've had that discussion with Ray before, and there's no penalty for any of it.
Meeting the
Yeah.
expectations.
Yeah,
Ray, on the data that you're looking at.
yeah.
Are we going off of call responses, or are we going off of, location data?
Location data. Where that car is.
Right,
Is it, well, wherever. Because when I look at this in District 60, which is down here, I always get confused. I think this is District 60 down here. The morning and swing shifts, on average, it's about 6 to 6.5, almost 7 hours per shift of a 10-hour shift. They're actually in Troutdale. So an average, say, 2/3 of the time. But the night shift is in Troutdale, I don't know why, less than half the time in the city of Troutdale.
okay.
That's concerning.
Yeah, I go, what is that? What's the reason for that? In District 70, up in the residential areas, the numbers are a little bit higher, not a lot. I mean, the night shift, on average, is more like half the time, 50% of the time. Again, it's still 2/3 on the other shifts up there. But it's like, it's a half to 1/3 of the deputy's time is outside the city limits. And that's something to deal with the contract, is how do you word something like that? Because they'll say, well, if my other deputy's in trouble in Fairview, he needs a backup, I'm gonna go. Okay, when we had our own police department, that same thing happened. Troutdale officers would go back them up. I don't have the numbers, I'd just be guessing, but I can't imagine our deputies were gone 1/3 to 1/2 of our officers were gone 1/3 to 1/2 the time outside the city.
Well, if Multnomah County can put fines against AMR, we should be able to have some sort of fine clause against Multnomah County in our
Right.
contract. So meeting a certain metric.
I guess that's what you're saying, is that like you're saying, you have to have in the contract, you will be held accountable for this, and when you're not meeting this, there is this penalty. Whatever that is, however that's decided, it has to be, in my eyes, a penalty where we can hold them accountable, whether it's monetarily or, I don't even know what else you would do, but it seems silly that
Yeah.
there's not, to be honest with you, and it's kind of disappointing.
Would village pay for response and not patrol?
Correct. Well, they don't pay for either. They have some flat rate of $500,000 a year to come when we call.
Okay, but there's more court cases
I don't know.
for the other cities
It's
than there
weird.
are for Troutdale.
Yeah.
And primarily, those are driven by Walmart and Kohl's and Fred Meyer. And so if they're on a response system, and that's where most of your cases are coming from, I think that's where most of the officers are.
Okay, all right. I'm just musing about this information. All right, yeah. And this is another thing, and again, I'm just musing because I'm not don't answer this question. When they show me the average time spent per day by shift on discretionary or non-discretionary, when they're on a call or not on a call, all the deputies in the fourth quarter of 2023 in both districts spent over 7 hours of 10 not on a call. So if 70% of their time or 75% of their time is not on a call, if I do the math, that's like a quarter of their time is not on a call and not inside the city of Troutdale. Why would that be? Why would they not be in the city of Troutdale if they're not on a call.
Car 54, where are you?
Yeah, so these are, you know,
Taking it out.
these are the things that I'm gonna have a conversation with Doug about when I meet with him again and say, I need to understand this. This looks like we're paying for something and they spend most of their time or a big chunk of their time somewhere else.
I mean, I would say on the other hand, not trying to be, is that, have our crime statistics skyrocketed with this?
No.
Are they the same? I mean, Troutdale's a pretty safe
It's
place.
based on-
I feel it's safe, like, and I'm not saying, I'm not making, no way to make an excuse, but you're also, you know, keep in mind what the actual facts
Crime
say.
statistics are based on reports, you don't get the
Right.
report, you don't get the statistic.
If they're not writing reports, you're not gonna have the statistics.
And then I'll go back to preaching about tickets, right? All the warnings that are given in Troutdale versus tickets. I think we should write more tickets. We should have more of a reputation of a law and order town to keep the element away. But neighborhood policing, that's not gonna be on reports. When you talk about being out in the public and being out in neighborhoods and getting to know the neighborhoods and keeping away, whether it's vandals, whether it's people blowing up mailboxes, whether it's people pushing over signs, messing up your fences, whatever it may be, stuff that is not gonna be on a report.
Oh, so you do know
So-
about that stuff going on.
Cause all my neighbors,
But unreported crime, you can't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
It may be a lot or it may be very little.
but if
You
they were
really
in
don't
the
know.
neighborhoods, they would know. They would talk to the neighborhood.
Yeah, but when I'm looking at the numbers you were asking about, you know, for June,
I'm just saying for my sample size, my small sample size in my
That's-
neighborhood,
it's called anecdotal.
it's up.
Yeah.
Because my next door neighbor got broken into twice. One time they took $12,000 worth of stuff. Neither time they would come out and write a report. That's two right there.
Right, and again, make a list in the contract. If we go back to Multnomah County Sheriff, maybe that's one of the requirements for these types of calls. A deputy shall physically appear at the crime scene.
Yep.
But if I'm looking at the numbers, you know, based on Jeffrey's question, burglaries, in May, there was 3. The previous year, in June, there were 3. In June of this year, there was 1. Assaults, this year in June, last month, there were 5. In May, there were 12. Last year in June, there were 8. How do you have, 30-day average was 8.6 on average. So, you know, if you look at thefts, last year's 30-day average for the year was 30 thefts per month. We had 28 in June. So I'm not seeing a big number increases in crimes. You could do this for a long time.
Twyla?
Yeah, I just want to offer maybe a counterpoint to some of the views being discussed, and not that I am young by any means, but I do think there have been some additions because I am busy and I don't want to wait for non-emergencies. So I think there are some situations where I really don't want to talk to an officer, and I'm totally happy, and in fact, do all my reporting mostly by the portal they have now.
Yeah, you can do it online.
Yeah, and so I think there are probably some people who like that face-to-face, and there's many of us who just want to be, hey, somebody broke my window, I'm on with my day. I can't hang around and wait for an officer. So I think it's kind of a balance of both of those two pieces.
I mean, last crime victim I had, had my
yes.
wallet stolen, and I went online, filed a report in City Gresham, I got my case number, that's all I needed to let everybody know, and they're not gonna assign somebody a detective to track down this person.
Well,
But sometimes people wanna feel better about their neighborhood and know that there's an officer around.
that's true. And then, you know, when I go on next door and I go on Beaver Creek and I go on these things and there is crime happening in our city. And it's happening at night, and people are saying it's on their ring. I mean, the latest is we've got a car with teenagers that are going out and checking out all the cars and seeing if they can break into them. And then, but then the person is saying, you know, I can't get through to the police. I know it's a BOAC issue, it's not a police issue, but how, if we don't have a person in Troutdale even monitoring this, or, it's frustrating. I just think things are not being reported.
Yeah. I mean, my thing is like, I would love someone to sit on Hensley, because there's guys that just like blow down that straightaway like constantly. Is that realistic for me to like expect that my
What?
police are gonna?
What happened with Hensley?
Yeah,
You want somebody to patrol Hensley for speeding?
yeah, they could
You don't
sit
have to go
there,
slow,
they could sit there all day long. You know what I mean? Like, I could have a car sit
Okay.
on there all day long and catch people
I,
until it goes away.
what time of day?
But like, if there's,
Just tell me what time of day. I tell people all the
Literally
time,
all day
tell me
long.
if there's a traffic issue somewhere, let me know, I'll
Like,
make sure Nick gets up there.
9 to 6. It could be all day, but then
it's-
like,
But
you
Nick
have
only
that,
works till 6 o'clock or whatever, like I complain about the Troutdale Road.
Yeah,
it's the same thing, so if I,
Same
you
thing,
can't
but it's
have,
after
and then you can't have a guy on the Columbia, the
compared
highways,
to,
like,
yes,
you
compared to
can't
Mill
have
Road.
somebody at each spot, so I guess what I'm saying is, what's realistic?
the other thing we do also before necessary, or in addition to that is I told, well, do I call her your wife or your chair? Anyway, well, one of the things we're gonna do is put just past your house, we have a reader, a radar reader.
Those are helpful.
That would tell us, is there a speeding problem? And so they record every single vehicle that goes past a certain point, and you get a report for 7 days. And if 85% of the people are going at or less than the speed limit, most reports say you don't have a speeding problem. Sure, you're gonna have an occasional person, but if it's just a minor amount of people, and it tells you what speed they were going also, each car, truck, motorcycle.
And I will like mirror what Carol said about people coming through the neighborhoods, checking cars, like, it happens all the time, and I get that. So, my thing would be, is that this is what our main concerns are about, we need to spend more money on having more people and more community policing, it's gonna cost more.
But that's
And
why
I'm,
we're
and
hoping
I
to
am,
add the
and I would just wanna
resource
say,
that we
like, I am fine with that. But I don't wanna be like, now we have to chintz about the money, you know what I mean? We have to like nickel and dime every single thing, it's like, look, if this is what we want, if you wanna have a nice city, if you wanna feel safe and comfortable in your city, we are going to have to spend more money.
See, and that's the thing that again,
That's my view, and like, but we have to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
I know that everything costs more money, and
A lot
there's
of
so
stuff
many
is-
things coming, but to me, it's,
But
yeah,
I'm sorry,
let's do it.
Kenny first.
Anyways,
Okay, so I never said somebody needs to be out there patrolling on Columbia River Highway. I didn't say that. My point was, that is the second most traveled road in the city. And I have not seen anyone out there on that stretch in over a year. The only people I see out there clocking anybody are state troopers, ever. And that highway has over 1 million people a year on it. Right now, you've got drunk people walking down the middle of the street. I'm saying it's a safety issue, it's a concern. I'm not saying somebody needs to patrol it, but what I am saying is, what makes no sense to me is when a motorcycle goes by doing like 85 and the cops go in the other direction and he does nothing.
Correct.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
but it's just like, if you tell me this stuff, we'll do something. We'll get a couple of patrols out there and they'll emphasize it. I just need to
I
tell
think what
Nick
we're
to
saying
go.
is that you shouldn't have to tell you, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? It should be regularly patrolled, consistent, so that these things are avoided, and people know that if I go 75 down this road, there will be a consequence.
And this is
Or
why
my risk
think
for
though
consequences.
that
Okay.
if we go with Multnomah County in the next contract, we have to set a bar.
Right.
And there has to be consequences, and we have to be very communicative on how we want to.
And managing, having a full-time chief, I think, is a big deal, because all he'll care about is Troutdale and citizens like you saying these things. And if they have more direct, the command structure is weird, and I knew that, but if we have 2 resource deputies, how are they directed? And they should be directed by the chief, is my thought. So we have 2 deputies that we can control who have overlapping schedules, so that, they're 7 days a week, and they have 10-hour shifts, and so we've got 80 hours of coverage, and all they do is what we direct them to do. And so that hopefully allows us to do more of that patrol.
Rich?
Clarification, are you looking at location data or are they reporting location data?
they're reporting it, that their GPS data, it's just, they just push a button and it prints out a report. And I have the last quarter of '23, I should get more quarters. We have 2 more quarters now,
Kenny,
so,
did you have one?
anyway.
No, it's just, when we went to this model, we were told it was going to be better. It was sold to us as it was going to be better, and find me 10 people that live in Troutdale that think it's better.
Not saying that, I'm saying we made a mistake not to have any levers in place to hold them accountable.
I agree.
Yeah, how the patrols were done, what the emphasis were, yeah,
We
it says
live, we
numbers
learn.
on the road,
Yeah.
but there's no
Well, it's not
mechanisms.
numbers on the road, it's numbers like in the Walmart parking lot or somewhere,
Yeah.
you know?
So I don't remember how the decision was made to go with Multnomah County. I know Rick does. But I remember going to these meetings, I remember everybody protesting against it, and they did it anyway. I don't know if all the city councilors met and looked at the contract. I don't know, if that did happen, I would want all the city councilors to really look at this contract with a fine-tooth comb and making sure that what we're discussing is in that contract, and that there's there's like, okay, we're gonna fine you if you don't give us what we want, or, we've been paying for things that we're not even getting.
100%, you are
I
right.
would really want this contract to be looked at, and I would want it to be as a collective, as a whole, with, city council, and I know the city looks at it, Ray looks at it, but I don't want one person making the decision, okay, we're gonna do this. Because I felt like that's what was happening last time.
Yeah, I don't wanna criticize the last contract too much, because it's the first time it ever been done.
But as a person on this committee, I want to be assured and know that all of you are gonna be working together to look at this contract, because I felt we were screwed the last time, the way it was handled. Not to say anything bad about everybody that was on it or good, I'm just saying my feeling.
Rich,
So, the reason she doesn't know this is we don't talk about city things. When we're not here in a meeting, because we have better things to do. But anyway, what was happening at that time is the contract was deteriorating on how advantageous it was to Troutdale. But by then, they had the votes they needed, and so there was no leverage, and the vote went through. It became more political, and so that's how it deteriorated to what it was.
Nobody cared.
I mean, I 100% agree with you. Well, 100%. And I think that the key to this whole thing would be when whatever contract, whatever we do, is there is accountability. There are levers and mechanisms in place to make sure that the accountability can be enforced. And I think if you have those, I feel like an easy sell to people to say, like, look, here's what we didn't have the last time. Here's the things we put in place. When those mechanisms aren't met, we hold them accountable like this. And we are committed to, making sure that the citizens get what they were promised and deserve. I mean, that's, to me, is like, probably seems like it's logical, but.
Just, I have a copy of Happy Valley's new proposed contract with Clackamas County. And they have so many more metrics in it than we ever had in our original contract. I'm looking at it right now. Positions assigned to the city shall be dedicated to work within the city limits, subject to responses to assist another jurisdiction or other deputies according to mutually agreed upon criteria. And so it's just a lot of this,
something we could learn from.
yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely something to really glean from.
Cool. Okay,
Yeah,
let's,
I'll send you guys a copy of their draft for their new contract.
Can I clarify?
Sure,
Great statement.
absolutely.
When I say they, I don't want assumptions being made. most of the sheriff's department was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
When I was dealing with those other government agencies, the big push was actually from Troutdale Police at that time. That's why I had to do that.
Generally speaking, we don't have a lot of issues with Multnomah County Sheriff, we just want more neighborhood policing.
Right.
More control over how they do their job and
Yes.
stay in the city.
Yes. All right, are we good to move on? Okay. Update on fire service, right?
Okay, just a couple things real fast on that one. First of all, I signed a contract on behalf of the three cities, because they're doing it with Tiberius. Tiberius is doing a financial study over the next 3 months. They should be done by October 15th, where they are analyzing the financial impact of a fire district, a new fire district or fire district 10, which is what would the property tax consequences be? What would the impact be on property owners in Troutdale and their property taxes? Under our two scenarios, $2.40 a thousand or $2.80 a thousand, which is the range that a new district or fire district 10 theoretically might be. It will calculate what, if any, money the city might lose in their own property tax revenues based upon compression, if that has any impact on it. What money, if a fire district was created, would the city receive extra out into their general fund because they're not paying for fire service out of the general fund anymore. And so they're doing that study for all three cities, but 3 individual standalone reports. For each city will have their own calculation of financially, what does a fire district look like and the impact on our citizens and our general fund for that. The second thing is that, and so Troutdale took the lead on that study, that money study. The Wood Village took the lead on a second study that we are joined in, which is the feasibility study. They just got 2 bids on a feasibility study 2 weeks ago, and one of them, as Greg Dirks, the city manager, told me, well, one of them seemed to be more serious than the other one, more professional, so they're going to go with that one. And that study is going to evaluate options for jointly providing fire protection among the 3 cities, for the feasibility of Fire District 10, Fire District 1, which is the Clackamas County Fire District, or forming a new district. So they're going to look through the feasibility of creating a fire department or joining one of those other entities and comparing it to our current services. The project deliverables, I'll just read off the RFP, evaluating the potential for merging services into a larger district and financial and operational impacts, finding and recommendations regarding potential partnering strategies and options for shared services, interlocal agreements where one fire district would assume all functions and activities, assess the feasibility benefits of annexation back into Fire District 10 or into Fire District 1, remaining with Gresham, or forming a new district. So it's going to be a whole feasibility study that they're going to be doing, is what really are the best options for the city of Troutdale. Because of that, I told Jensen Strategies, don't do any work on creating a Troutdale fire department. We've already got money going to these 2 studies. This one kind of overlaps that too, so let's kind of wait and see what they come up with. If you recall, I think we talked about it months ago, the 2014 USC, is that the year they did the study for us? They went through and they talked about options for creating a new fire department. And honestly, I'll just tell you that everybody I've talked to says 3 cities aren't big enough to create a fire department to get the economics of scale to make it worth your while. Fire District 10 has told me, even if just the 3 cities joined Fire District 10, they still couldn't afford to create a new fire department again. It just wouldn't pan out for them. And part of the problem is we don't own any property for fire stations either. At least we have a police bill. So anyway, those are the updates. We got 2 studies going on right now that will give us a ton of information. I don't know what the timeline is. Greg's gone for a couple days, and I'll ask him what the timeline is for the feasibility study, but we will get the numbers back to us by the middle of October for the impact of the fire district. City of Gresham has also finally hired a company to do their own financial analysis of what a fire district looks like, which is great because they've never had any numbers. They don't know. There are some people over there, elected officials, who seem to think that, oh no, it's not worth it for us because compression would take away the $25 million that we put into the fire department, which is Looney Tunes at best. No, compression doesn't work that way. it compresses everybody's tax rate a little to make up for it. But they're gonna get real numbers, so we'll have facts, and I've talked to the city manager, says, yes, as soon as we have our facts on what the financial impacts to us on fire districts, then we can talk about it. I've also talked to, Vince Dixon Jones, Vince Jones Dixon, I apologize if Vince ever hears this audio, about your last name, which direction it went. But he's our new Multnomah County Commissioner, starting in January. Vince is real involved, he's the current Gresham City Council member. So he's involved in all these discussions and aware of all these issues. And as we talked about before, if we went with a new fire district, Multnomah County would have to be the starter, the genesis of that project to come up with a vote for everybody. He is very positive on that being an idea and something we could pursue. So that's good that he's coming off as believing that is a viable option we need to look at very seriously. Because he appreciates that the cities can't keep paying for the current level of fire service with the current funding restrictions that we have. And it would allow us an opportunity to look at the transport issue. Because currently, we're dealing with the AMR issue where ambulance isn't getting there in a timely fashion. Multnomah County is the one who sets the overall plan for ambulance services in the county. And with him being on the commission, if you did a new fire district, it would be an easier push to make that part of the new fire department, that they do transport. That's a common thing for fire departments around the state to do, is to do that in addition to the other services. So just saying, those are the things that become negotiable then at that point, if you're talking about all those issues. And so having Vince really open to talking about those issues and think they are very important things to talk about, that was very encouraging when I met with him about 3 weeks ago. So that was good to hear him say that. And he's very informed on the issues too. So that's been good, because he's been a Gresham City Council member now for 4.5 years. So throughout this whole process of their 2 public safety measures. So anyway, that's, yes, that's all I had on current fire.
What about any discussions with Gresham yet on an IGA extension? So
Nothing
not
yet.
even dropping a hint of, we gotta have a discussion about a discussion?
No, not
Okay.
yet.
Yeah,
Not yet. I think, yeah, we do have to start, we bugged them and bugged them and bugged them, and honestly, it's gonna have to be from a mayor to mayor level. So I will tell our mayor we need to bug, because the
Yes.
other mayors are also, Mayor Keith and Mayor John from Wood Village and Fairview, they're right with Mayor Randy in Gresham, talk to us, please.
yep, we need to get that
We
rolling.
gotta start rolling,
ASAP,
regardless
so
of the fire district stuff.
we're getting an extension
Yes.
on that and not get steamrolled by
Right,
fire Gresham.
we gotta get serious talking about that.
And I would just add,
Jeffrey.
just to like piggyback, again, to say the same kind of thing with any contract extension or, that we do, there needs to be measures in there where we can hold them accountable. I don't know what's in there currently necessarily, but it would be the same situation as our police contract that there needs to be some accountability. And I would also say, at least a voice within their fire chain, whether it's the board or however they do that. Like, I think it's really important that we push for a voice for Troutdale, Fairview, Wood Village. One vote in a sense wouldn't make a difference necessarily within their chain, but at least to have a voice would be, I think, put people a little bit more at ease, and help with communication, so.
More than you have now.
Yeah. Anything's better than zero.
That's very true. You don't have a timeline on that, Ray, on anything from them, or
No.
at what point is like I don't wanna say a drop dead point, but like at a point where,
Can we put this high on Randy's list to get a conversation going?
It's on my list of things to do.
Thank you.
We've got to get a discussion going.
Yes. Gentlemen? Rich?
I noticed ambulances responding to calls. That seems to have improved. Is that something that somebody did, or?
I don't know. County doesn't talk to me about AMR, and I don't,
Okay.
I think they started a pilot program where they have so many, paramedic and EMT basic teams out there. And I say a pilot program, I use that with all due respect,
It's too
but
early to tell because.
it would, yeah, I mean, it obviously is gonna help them offload some of their, transports, but I know that they had started that, like a month or two ago,
Yeah, that's about right.
so maybe hopefully it's helping, I would say.
Yeah, well, Noma County Chair had a couple of pilot programs that she was instituting, so. Better late than
Nice.
never.
Anyway,
Okay, could we all look at our calendars?
continuing on the Monday theme, I'm looking at 12th or 19th. Maybe the 12th sooner than only
Yeah,
3 weeks
because-
out.
Because you're gonna have the, Multnomah County Sheriff,
stuff, yeah.
yep. you're
Is
gonna-
that something that you can, once you get it, you can send to us so we can?
It'll go right to you.
Perfect. Oh, that fast, like that? I thought I was getting shushed a little bit, but that was perfect.
No, no, that would have been a shh, as opposed to a www.
Perfect.
All right, the 12th is on the table, comments?
August 12th?
Yep.
3 weeks.
Oh, look at that, I'm empty again.
What was the other date?
19th, week after,
Oh, look at that, I'm empty again. I'm okay either day.
okay?
I would personally prefer the 19th, but
I'll get you the stuff in the sheriff's office before, so you'll be able to read it and analyze it and look at it, so.
Mr. Stepson,
Sorry.
which one of those work better for you?
Actually.
Okay. Ladies,
I'm open.
Twyla,
I am Switzerland, I'm good with either.
you good with either, Victoria, good with either? Okay, 19th it is.
19th?
19th. Okay, Monday the 19th on the calendar. Good.
Thank you all for that, being so accommodating. Any other comments before we close her out? Looking around the room.
Good discussion.
Yeah, good discussion. We need a lot more information, but we'll keep going.
I'll just say that with the direction of the discussions and so forth, I feel pretty good, that we're at least asking the right questions, and no matter which way we go, should go well.
And on the agenda next time, I just thought, I'm gonna have Captain Asbo come talk about that GPS data about where our deputies spend our time. Would anybody like to have that?
are we able to like ask them about accountability and how
Right,
that could
Talk about
possibly change
accountability.
and,
You
like,
could ask him anything you want.
perfect.
yeah, would that be helpful? I'm not saying I have to make him come, but if you would like him to come, I'm more than happy to get him come.
Yes, please.
Get the reports, I'll
I
get you.
think give him an overarching of, as we talk about contracts,
Right,
we want to talk about accountability and overarching just how accountability and how we perceive
How we-
officers. So be ready for a robust conversation.
how do we nail the sheriff's office feet to the fire to make sure we get our money's worth? That's what I heard you say.
And neighborhood.
Kinda like that.
And neighborhood policing.
Okay,
All right,
I will.
with that, I would be open to a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn?
I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are adjourned for this evening. Thanks, everybody.